Type in an address, drop the little yellow man, and suddenly you're there wherever there happens to be. That's the magic of Google Maps and Street View. But when you give the internet a window onto every street field and ice covered ridge on the planet, you also give it the chance to spot some weird shit. We're talking mystery villages that never existed, tanks that aren't tanks worshipped as holy relics, Antarctic bunkers, and pranks elaborate enough to warrant police attention. Some finds, they're just glitches. Others, well, let's just say the explanations are as strange as the images themselves. Today, we're sharing some of the wildest treasures ever discovered from the comfort of a sofa. The Tonk. Monuments to fallen soldiers usually inspire quiet respect, not exactly internet hysteria, but then again, most war memorials are not the size of a Fiat 500 and accidentally labelled as a religious shrine. Enter the Tonk, and no, we didn't misspeak there, we said Tonk, not tank. Its rise to fame began when bemused Redditors, particularly those from World of Tanks and War Thunder, stumbled across a listing and immediately started cooing over it. They dubbed it the Tonk, a cute name for an apparently cute little contraption, and well, the name stuck. Soon, pranksters were flooding to its Google Maps page to pay tongue-in-cheek homage, with leaving many 5-star reviews extolling the Tonk's divine powers and holy ambience, with highlights including, quote, "I live as Tonk said, I believe in Tonk. I pray to the almighty Tonk to relieve me of my bone hurting after I overdosed on bone-hurting juice. One day later and my bones were filled with the happies. All praise the Tonk. And finally, I walk the path of the Tonk. It's more than just a shrine, it's a lifestyle. I love the Tonk, and I cannot wait for the day I make my holy pilgrimage to it." And that pretty much is it for the Tonk itself. It's a little mini tank that went viral after being spotted on Google Maps. There really isn't that much more to say about it. Although because, well, we're kind of nerds for this sort of thing, we are able to tell you what it actually is. It's made using the M19 Commander Cupola from an M60 pattern tank, likely an M60A1, given that Italy fielded 300 of that model, specifically with its original M250 caliber machine gun having been swapped out for a dummy cannon. The rest of it, i.e. the 2 road wheels and whatever length of track it has, well, they both come from an M60 as well, likely the same one that had its Commander's Cupola pinched. As for who made it, and how did it get outside of that memorial, well, internet sleuths have spent a lot of time pondering those very questions, and they reached the exact same verdict, all of them. There is an unconfirmed but credible enough sounding story that it was commissioned as an art piece back in 1995 for the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, and then it was just left there owing to its weight, much to the chagrin of local motorists who kept hitting it. But all of this is unconfirmed, we just don't know for sure.
Have you ever decided to Google yourself? I mean, I definitely have. I Googled myself before I was even really on the internet, being like Googleable, and you're like, oh, that's weird that bit of information's there. Oh, that is my old address when I was like 8. How do you know this internet? What's going on? It's kind of unsettling. And with today's sponsor, Incogni, you can reduce that feeling of unsettlingness, unsettleability, uncomfortableness. I don't know, but whatever that feeling is, today's sponsor Incogni is going to sort you right out. They've even recently launched custom removals, which is part of their unlimited plan. It lets you do something about your data floating around out there. If you spot a site exposing your personal info like white pages, Trellis, Unicorns, just copy the link, drop it into Incogni's dashboard, and boom, their privacy experts handle the rest. They'll review the link, they'll confirm it's eligible. Some stuff's not, like the government might just be like, yo, this court record has to be there, my dude. They can't get rid of that. But all that other shit, they definitely can. They automatically work with 250 data brokers, and like I said, if you've got one that's outside those 250s and you're on the ultimate plan, just drop in the link and they'll sort it out for you. You can submit as many links as you want. Some removals take a few days. Others take up to 45. They're working hard for that. This is the easiest way to get your data off the internet without spending hours emailing site admins yourself. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Use the code Sideprojects at incogni.com/sideprojects and you'll get 60% off an annual plan.
Sadly, though, all good memes must come to an end, and the Tonk is no exception. In October 2022, the Google Street View car passed by once again, and it was gone, with construction site fencing taking the place of the legend. For devout Tonkists, praise be, this was a dark day. Who took it? Well, conspiracy theories since then have swirled. Did a disgruntled local get sick of random tourists flocking to it and request to be taken down? Had someone simply stuck it in the back of a transit van and made off into the night? Or had it been called back up to heaven? Definitely the last one. Well, actually, it was none of those things.
Nope.
Turns out that the whole thing was just being zhooed up, Tonk included, as at the time of writing, it's back, looking smarter than ever. And if you want to see it yourself, it's in Saviano, just outside of Naples, by the way. The non-existent village. If you tried to visit the British village of Argleton in 2008, you'd end up stuck in the middle of a muddy field looking like a bit of a tit. Why? Well, that's because Argleton doesn't exist. This Bermuda Triangle of West Lancashire, catchy, it was first spotted by a chap named Mike Nolan, a university web manager and local resident. He was having a mooch about the local area on Google Maps one day, as you do, and saw Argleton labelled in a familiar area, and he basically went, "You what? Never heard of that." Then he donned his wellies and went to go and investigate. And sure enough, he found only an empty field beside the A59. From there, he blogged about it, a local news channel sent out a bloke in a van to film a quick segment on it, even though there was nothing there, and Lancashire writ large went, "Ooh, isn't that weird?" Outwardly, not exactly the most exciting event ever to befall man, be the first to admit that, but it does spark a really interesting question. How could Google Maps, for all of its high-tech kit and normally fastidious attention to detail, manage to make such a monumental cock-up? Well, one theory was that it was a simple typo. Maybe a cartographer meant to type Orton and somehow coughed up Argleton instead. The two names are tantalizingly similar after all. Another theory posits it was a deliberate so-called copyright trap. You see, map makers have a long and sneaky history of planting fake towns or streets to catch plagiarists. If a competitor's map also contains your fake place, they know that you copied their work and they'll ring their lawyers. Google stayed mostly mum on the matter though, saying only that their map data has occasional errors. The data in this case came from Teleatlas, a Dutch company which was equally flummoxed and never gave an official explanation. Whatever the problem was, however, it was eventually fixed, as come mid-2010 it had been removed, thus ending the absolutely nail-biting tale. The Antarctic doorway. In early 2024, map enjoyers on Reddit spotted something bizarre on a desolate ridge in East Antarctica, a huge, dark, door-shaped shadow on the snowy slope, looking for all the world like an entrance to something, maybe? Could it be a massive secret bunker, an alien base, a gateway to the hollow Earth? Definitely the last one! Well, whatever it was, they dubbed it the Antarctic doorway, and naturally, tinfoil hats were donned Reddit-wide. The location of this supposed door was about as remote as it gets, near Antarctica's Queen Maud Land coast, not far from the Japanese Showa research station, which itself is tiny and really rather isolated. Helpfully, the Reddit user also posted the coordinates so others could see the anomaly for themselves. And then, sure enough, on Google Maps satellite view, there was a peculiar rectangle shadow on a hillside roughly the size of a large building. In an environment of endless white and grey, this certainly stood out. Reactions abounded. Could be an underground base entrance, could be nothing. Excellent find either way. Others joked it was Bigfoot's vacation home or the door from Monsters Inc., where Mike and Sully got banished to the Himalayas. A few killjoys even started making sensible suggestions, like it being a blown-off airplane hatch or just simply a random crevasse. Fortunately, they did nothing to dissuade those who weren't allergic to fun, and so more and more out there suggestions started appearing. Some tied it to the old myth of a secret Nazi bunker in Antarctica, definitely that. Or maybe it was an extraterrestrial hangar, as well as it can be both, a Nazi extraterrestrial hangar. I mean, why not, guys? After all, the internet had a field day with the so-called Antarctica Pyramid in 2016, where a mountain vaguely shaped like a pyramid got people buzzing about ancient aliens, and, well, now we had a door to go with it. How exciting. Eventually, however, with the story doing the rounds on social media and legacy media alike, actual scientists soon stepped in to set the record straight. Those bloody spoil sports. One of them, Professor Bethan Davies, a glaciologist, pulled historical satellite imagery in Google Earth Pro and immediately popped the bubble. It was an iceberg. It was a really, really big, rectangular-ish iceberg that just got wedged against the coast and kind of just stuck there. As evidence, she pointed to nearby chunks of ice, basically all of which showed the exact same patterns. So yes, between all the wrinkles atop her brain, her expertise in her field, and the easily verified evidence, it's not a conclusion you can disagree with, however much you want to. We want those Nazi aliens. Another expert, Professor Martin Seigert, took the explanation further still and pointed out that the area has a fast-moving ice flow around some shallow, rocky islands, and when an iceberg freezes in such conditions, snow drifts pile up leeward of it, making those weird sharp lines. Nothing alien, just Mother Nature doing her thing. And to top it all off, a volcanologist named Professor John Smelly, sorry John, really, then chimed in and described the features: a rocky ridge poking up the top of the doorway, and two parallel snow ridges formed by the wind, the sides of the doorway. Add a low sun angle for dramatic shallow, and voila, a spooky ice door illusion. In his words, it's a weak and totally false door-like appearance overall. And to translate that, take it down to a 2, guys, it clearly ain't a door to the underworld, no matter how much you may want it to be. And indeed, once you look closer, the magic does evaporate rather quickly. The supposed doorway has no depth, it's not an actual hole or entry, it's just a shaded area on a slope. The surrounding context shows other ice bodies and drifts that put the anomaly in perspective. In plain terms, it's just one big optical gotcha. No secret bunker for the evil moustache man, no UFO base, no vacation home for Bigfoot, just another natural phenomenon, nothing to get excited about. We're so sorry. And while certainly disappointing as reality oh so often is, it's a textbook example of apophenia, if nothing else. Seeing meaningful patterns where none exist. Nothing to see here, move along. Zoom in on certain spots in Google Maps and you might think your internet is glitching. Big blurry blocks, pixelated patches, or just conspicuous blank areas. And no, it's not your Wi-Fi. Google sometimes censor locations at the behest of governments and their militaries, resulting in a global patchwork of mystery zones. And please keep your answers on the vehicle as we peek at some of these secretive and bizarrely blurred sites. Our first stop, Israel. Until recently, if you tried to get a close-up of, say, downtown Tel Aviv or the hills of the West Bank, Google would serve you potato-quality images. It turns out a US law, the Kill-Bingham Amendment, forced online maps to cap resolution that way for security reasons. And for years, as a result, much of the region was intentionally blurry. This was the largest single area on Google Earth under such restriction. That rule was eased in 2020, and yet, at the time of writing, much of the imagery there still only has the amount of pixels you could count on your fingers. It's also done in a way that doesn't necessarily scream sense. Consider Kiryat Menachem, a neighborhood in southwest Jerusalem. It is still displayed in very low resolution, but then if you head a mile to the east of Beit Safava, it's in perfectly clear modern detail. Initially, because we picked this spot at random, we thought it might be down to the 1949 armistice border that lies between them, the ceasefire boundary established between Israel and its neighboring Arab states after the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, especially given that both were photographed at the same time in May 2024. But then we scrolled further south and to the town of Adarat and the village of Al-Dar, and they're both displayed perfectly clearly, despite them both being separated by that same line. So clearly it's not down to that. Ultimately, we just don't have a clue why. Every source we could find while searching for an answer for this didn't address the specific ins and outs of where is and isn't blurred nowadays and why, and instead just discussed the general circumstances that led to some of them being that way. So, in this case, your guess is just as good as ours. Moving on from Israel now, though, because many other countries have given Google a stern finger-wagging over the years and ordered that certain installations be blurred or entirely erased. The Netherlands, for example, had a real penchant for pixelation. The royal family's Noordinder Palace in The Hague was once blurred into oblivion on Google Maps, as was Volkel Air Base, site of an American nuclear weapons repository, by the way, as well as a nearby NATO communications center, with all three of them appearing as a very obvious patchwork of Earth-colored pixels up until 2016, when a change in the law in the country allowed them to be properly displayed. The reasons for this are obvious enough as national security, although, as the change in law clearly shows, the Dutch government evidently takes a bit more of a liberal view on the matter nowadays. The Dutch, however, are not the only ones in Europe to have covered things up, as the French still do so to this very day, with parts of Paris, the Palais de Armes, the official residence, and the Centre prison still being pixelated to this very day. Annoyingly, however, the exact specifics of why this is the case remain elusive. Obviously, it's national security related, but the full details of ex-minister said Y to Z to make it happen nothing. The only thing that we could find on the matter at all was reporting from back in 2018 that discussed the French government specifically asking for prisons to be censored after Redouin Fade, a convicted murderer who had been dubbed the Jailbreak King, broke out of a prison near Paris after some of his pals pinched a helicopter and flew it into the courtyard. I remember that. It was really cool. Even though he escaped. By going back through old maps, though, we found that Tour Val de Loire Airport used to be uncensored before it was pixelated in 2016, 2 years before, and totally unrelated to the censoring of prisons, a state which it remains in to this day. So from this alone, and in the absence of more conclusive evidence, we're inclined to believe that the French government simply demands Google to censor specific things on an as when and if basis, case by case. Not every pixelated patch of ground in Europe is due to Cloak and Dagger International Man of Mystery naughtiness, though sometimes it's just a bit of a technical fuck-up, as Spain's Mystery Square in El Gido can vouch. For years, this lot showed up as a pixelated tan square on Google Maps. Everything around it, mostly greenhouses and farms, was clear as day, but this one plot, redacted. When first spotted, rumors abounded online that it contained a military helipad or the entrance to some kind of secret government facility, claims that proved rather puzzling to the locals as they knew it only as a patch of dirt occupied by some trees. Eventually, however, around 2013, Google updated the imagery and the blur was gone, revealing absolutely nothing. There was no secret entrance to Dr. Evil's lair, no ultra-classified NATO nuclear site, nothing at all, just as the locals have been pointing out for years. Like we say, sometimes it's just a technical screw-up. Sometimes, though, the censorship can actually be personal because, fun fact, if you're rich or powerful enough, you can ask Google to blur your house, and they will. Case in point, the mansion of Gazprom CEO Alexei Miller in Russia was deliberately blurred on Google Maps, or rather it was because after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Google decided it actually didn't care about respecting his privacy all that much and stopped bothering to censor it. And occasionally, it's not state secrets, technical glitches, or VIP paranoia behind the blur. Sometimes it's just basic human decency. Case in point, the site of the Germanwings Flight 9525 crash in the French Alps. On the 24th of March 2015, the plane tragically slammed into a remote mountainside, killing all 150 people on board. Just one day later, a satellite image of the crash site was taken while recovery teams were still on the ground. But if you headed to the coordinates when it was updated, what you would have seen wouldn't be a detailed snapshot of the wreckage, but an oddly blurred or scrubbed section of landscape. Google, for obvious reasons, took it upon themselves to do this without any prompt or pushing from an external agency, and frankly, good fucking cool. Smile, you're on Street View. Look, be real folks, when you see that Google Street View car, you kinda wanna do something funny, don't you? Maybe whip out your opinion finger and point it in its direction. For most of us, however, such compulsions remain just those little niggles in the mind, impulses that, however much we may wish to, would never act upon. Keyword there, though, is most, because there exist people among us who are braver, stronger, and frankly just better than us mere mortals, and they surrender themselves gladly to their impulses. Case in point, this dude in Munich, this dude in Brisbane, and this lady in Paris. Beyond mere individual acts of cheekiness, however, some folks up the stakes even further and plan full-on pranks for the Street View car, one of the earliest being Horseboy. As you can see from the picture, that is nothing if not an apt description, because it's a kid in a horse mask, and that's about it. And because internet culture was a bit tamer back in those days, the image went viral and Horseboy became a viral superstar for a time, a juggernaut of a man whose stature among the locals was matched only by Scotland's greatest sons and daughters, the poet Robert Burns, the great war leader William Wallace, the guy who invented Iron Brew, those sorts of people. Not to be outdone, a group of Japanese pranksters known via daily portal Z orchestrated the human pigeon incident. When they learned the Google Street View car was coming through Tokyo's Mitaka neighborhood, they mobilized. The result? Street View images of an entire posse of people wearing giant pigeon masks, nonchalantly just hanging out by the road. Then there's the legendary fake murder prank, which again occurred in Scotland. Scottish people just bored, I guess. It happened when two mechanics in Edinburgh decided their time for greatness had come when they spotted the Street View car approaching their garage. With only seconds to act, one of them lay on the ground while the other grabbed a pickaxe handle and stood over him ominously. Then the Street View camera dutifully captured what looked like a brutal axe murder in progress. The image went unnoticed for a while, until a year later when someone saw it online and called the police. Cue a real police investigation, only for the cops to head to the scene and become baffled when they discovered the supposed dismembered victim elbow deep in a Volkswagen Beetle. Google, for their part, and because they are apparently allergic to fun, sorry business daddy, eventually updated the images, but not before Street View axe murder murder had become a viral sensation. And then, along a similar vein, there's the things that people don't intend to have recorded. Take an now infamous case from Peru. There, in 2013, a man casually browsing Street View noticed a familiar silhouette on a park bench in Lima. His girlfriend and later wife, arm around another man, leaning into him affectionately. Despite her face being blurred, he recognized her clothes, posture, the bag at her feet. Confronted with the truth, she admitted to the affair and their marriage collapsed. And then there's the case from Groningen in the Netherlands, circa 2008. There, a 14-year-old boy was mugged. Only the crime scene was caught by Google's camera rolling past at that exact moment. The image, showing the thieves approaching behind him, surfaced months later. No witnesses, no CCTV, just that Street View frame. It was enough for Dutch police to identify and arrest the twin brothers responsible, making it one of the first crimes solved thanks to a Google Street View car. Elsewhere, Google's lens froze mortifying and humiliating moments. A man in Mexico squeezing a fat one out back in 2020, a man in London in 2009 spewing up his Christmas cheer after he hit the ale big style at the office party, and a South African chap doing a runner after bolting the fence at Carterville Prison, still wearing his orange jumpsuit. And that's the beauty and the absolute danger of Street View. You never quite know when it's watching or what it's going to catch. Could be a prank, could be a crime, could be your unfortunate post-pint stride of pride caught an immortal 360 degrees. Google set out to map the world, and what it accidentally did was catalogue the weirdest bits of humanity. Pants down, fingers up, guts out, and dignity nowhere to be seen. Thank you for watching.